Are you ready for the best sex and relationship advice on air? Welcome to Sexually Connected with your host from Sydney, Australia, relationship and sex therapist, Claudia Soul.
Welcome to another episode of Sexually Connected, the show where we put sex back on the menu in your bedroom. We explore relationship problems at a global and individual level through the voices of our team and very special guests. Today we're exploring the zodiac and what it has in store for you in 2019, and in particular what it might have in store for me, which I can't wait to hear about. So for our listeners, you can call into the show and ask a question live on 310-928-7733. Or if you're outside of the United States, you can call in on +1 310 928-7733. You can also email all questions to questions@sexuallyconnected.com. I check those regularly throughout the broadcast. And remember, if you miss any of today's show, you can catch it and all of the other episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And really exciting, on February 1st, we're launching a really amazing new website. It's under construction at the moment, and you will be able to listen to all the shows directly from the website, which is just amazing. Any of the episodes, you'll be able to listen directly and also subscribe. And we'll be launching our really special magazine as well, Sexually Connected Monthly. But I'd like to introduce my co-host for today, Mr. John O'Hare from Sydney, Australia. John, how are you today?
I'm really well, Claudia. How are you?
Good.
Great to be here on a hot, sultry Sydney morning or afternoon.
I know. It's kind of beautiful looking outside, but I'm sitting in air conditioning, so I'm really spoiled. But I've got to ask you this question because we know you got married really, not long ago. And I think actually Sonja might have been on that show from memory when you got married.
Sonja was, yeah.
Yeah, special guest today. So how's married life and the rosebud tree?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, well, I've been painting with my dad a cherry blossom tree, a Japanese cherry blossom mural on the wall of our dining room in celebration of the wedding and the nuptials. And I've got two little bluebirds on the tree now. It's looking beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And for listeners who don't know, John, who's an Australian actor, producer here, and also has Opunski's Theatre, he got married in December, and to celebrate that, they've done this beautiful mural on their wall with these two little lovebirds. So you guys are all loved up, John.
We certainly are.
I love it. So loved up.
The little bluebirds are very sexually connected, and so are the butterflies too.
I noticed that. I thought, oh, yeah, they're just almost rubbing their sort of little breasts there, which is really up there. Can you throw some of that connection over my way?
Yeah, I'm sending it now.
I love it. But today we've got a really special guest, and Sonja's been on before and talked about the zodiac. But what's exciting today is she's actually going to talk about how she determines your reading and what might happen in your love life. And guess what? I'm going to be the guinea pig or the lucky one, whatever you want to call it, to find out exactly how this is done. So this is something you'd be able to contact Sonja about as well after the show, and certainly have that done for you as well. But Sonja, Francis, welcome.
Hello. How's it going, everybody?
It's going well. And for the listeners, I also should say that Sonja is a very accomplished astrologer. She really knows her stuff. So we're in good hands in finding out different bits and pieces today, that's for sure.
Thank you, Claudia.
So Sonja.
Hi, John.
So overall, what is the world of the zodiac doing? Is there anything special about 2019 that we should be aware of in relation to love and the bedroom?
That's a very loaded question. Very big question. I mean, I would say that right now, actually, we just had an eclipse in Leo on Monday, actually yesterday. And that eclipse is sort of like bringing out our, inner creative, joyful place in us. And that's also very much connected to our sexual side, right? Because when you're sexually connecting with someone, there is a lot of self-expression. There's a lot of joy in that and energy in that and really being present with another person. And Leo kind of represents that energy in a really beautiful way. So our joyful sexual connection with each other or romantic connection with each other is represented by that sign. And because we just had an eclipse in Leo, that would indicate, and especially because it was a lunar eclipse, which represents, relationships with other people, we get to see, how self-expressed are we, and how authentically connected are we with other people and how creatively we're connecting with other people. And so this is really this eclipse. I mean, it just happened. So we're feeling it very strongly right now, but this eclipse is really something that will unfold over the next several months. And it's, in a way, it's sort of like the crescendo of an eclipse, how should I call it? Like a period of eclipses that started in February of 2017. So we've really kind of come to we've been through this phase of eclipses in those two signs, in Aquarius and Leo. And now we're kind of seeing the fruition of that, in a sense, within the next several months. So if there's something that has started for you in February of 2017 in regards to a romantic relationship or in regards to wanting to be more self-expressed in your own relationship or wanting to have more of a romantic sexual connection with your partner, then this is the time now where this is going to come to fruition.
Wow. Okay. It's really interesting that you said that, Sonja, or all of that, and the fact that this year is going to be about connection and a culmination of a whole lot of things that have been going on since 2017, because what I see very much out there is that relationships and maybe sexual connection haven't really been on the agenda as something to talk about. Everyone's been talking about health and wellness. That's been massive over the last couple of years. But I've just noticed lately that sexuality and connection, and people are starting to talk more and more about this lack of connection that we have, and the resulting stress, anxiety, depression, and things like that are resulting from what I believe is a lack of connection generally. And that flows through, you can't have depression, anxiety, 1 in 4 people have that without that impacting a relationship. That's just fact. It's going to impact relationships. But
definitely.
Look, I'll jump in because you took away some details of mine in terms of doing my chart. And I think it's great for listeners to hear how you go about that and some of the things that can be drawn out in case it's something they want to do and understand what's in store for them. So let's dive into that and let me know what I'm in for.
Okay, let's get started. Well, first, I want to say that, I've always looked at the whole chart first, right? Because it's important to see who the whole person is and what's really important in the dynamic of the planets that are going on in the chart. And what I see in your chart, that there are a couple of contradictions in your chart. And so I think that for you, you have a side to you that's very spiritual and very gentle and very sensitive and very sweet. And then you also have a side to you that's very forceful and very direct and very strong, as a woman. And then you also have a side to you that's very cerebral and very intellectual and very sort of like, cutting through, all the emotional stuff and going straight to the, cerebral, more intellectual stuff. And so you have these different sides to you that are sort of like, maybe you could say, a little contradictory to each other. But of course, as human beings, we are very complex, right? And so we have different sides to us that, sometimes have to be working with each other, even though they might seem contradictory, right? And so that's something that's really good to know about yourself as well, because when we enter a relationship and we don't know these things about ourselves, right? Or we're not clear about them, right? Then what can happen in the relationship is that we're thinking that, we're not getting what we want from our partner because we show up in different ways at different times with our partner, with our relationship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd just jump in there and say, Sonja, you nailed it with me there in saying there's a spiritual side, there's a more forceful, and then there's the cerebral, intellectual side of me. I do have all those components, which is a bit daunting for any potential partner.
Well, I think what it really requires is to just really understand when something shows up more in a more forceful way for you, and when something shows up in a more sensitive, more gentle way, and when something shows up in a more cerebral way, and to just understand, that you're pulling these energies in whenever they are required, but that you're all of them. That you're not just one of them, but you're all of them. And so that your partner, that your potential partner, your eventual partner needs to understand that that's part of who you are and that's what they're getting, right? They're getting like the whole package, right? So they can't just choose one of those things. They will get all of it, right? And so
absolutely.
by being very clear about, how you can embrace all of these sides in a beautiful way for yourself, then you can also make, be more communicative about that with your partner as well, right? So one of the things that I've written down, because I made some notes, obviously so that I don't just, flunder around while we're talking here. One of the notes that I made when I looked at your chart was I looked to see, like, what would be a good partner for you? What would be someone that you could have a really beautiful fit with, right? And so one of the things that came up was that, having Venus in Aries in your chart, it would be great for you to have a partner who has a Venus sign in either Leo or Sagittarius, in particular. And then also an air sign would be good, like Venus in Aquarius or Venus in Gemini would be great as well.
Or Libra.
Or Libra as well. Yeah, Venus in Libra would work too.
Okay, that's interesting, because I always thought Pisceans weren't suited to air signs.
So what we're talking about right now is the Venus sign, right? So because when we look at the chart, we're not just looking at the sun sign, we're also looking at all the other planets. And so I'll get to the sun sign as well. But a partner, if you look at the whole chart, the person that you're going to be sharing, your life with, or a certain amount of period with, they're going to have all those planets in their chart too, right? They're also going to have a Venus and the Mars and the Moon and the Sun and the Mercury and all of that stuff, just like you do. And Venus, so what we want to look for in a partner's chart is, like, how do these planets relate to each other from your chart to their chart? And we want to have as many harmonious aspects as possible, but we also want to have some challenging and some oppositions to the other person, right? Because if you have a chart with another person where there's only trines and sextiles, which is the harmonious aspect, then you're probably just going to be friends, because there will be no sexual attraction to the other person. However, if you have a chart with someone where there's only oppositions and squares, which is the more challenging aspect, then you're probably going to have really great sex, but you're going to fight a lot. You're just going to be constantly in disagreement with each other. So you don't want that either, right? Mm-hmm. So what you really want is you want a really nice balance between harmonious aspects and challenging aspects between two people. And that shows you that you can get along, You also have great sexual chemistry with each other. And you're also there to work stuff through with each other so that the relationship is not stagnant. The relationship is actually there for both of you to evolve and to grow as individuals and as human beings.
Love this. I love this. The way you explain it too, as having those sort of conflicting parts, but the harmonious parts, but you need a little bit of that friction. It kind of reminds me of a book called The Passionate Marriage, which is totally based on having a little bit of anxiety, which is what feeds the sexual chemistry in a relationship. That if you don't have that bit of anxiety, this is the theory that you might not have that sexual chemistry without that tiny bit of anxiety.
That's interesting. I'm not sure I would pose it the same way, because anxiety to me it sounds a little bit like,
Well,
but
challenge.
I would maybe call it tension, like if there's a little bit of tension, between you and the other person, I feel, and that tension gets created with a square and an opposition, right? Because with a square, there's sort of this sense of like, we have to kind of like stretch ourselves a little bit in order to make this work. But that can be very sexy, right? That can be very sort of like, we're not quite, like you're here and I'm here and, let's just kind of dance with each other, and it makes it more interesting. The dance becomes more interesting, right?
Okay.
You have to think of it like tango, right? Like when you dance tango, there's always a little bit of tension, right? But it's one of the most sexiest dances there are, right? I mean, if you think about any other dance, tango, I would say is the one that comes to mind when I think about sex, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's our introduction music is tango.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, and there's tension in tango, right? And so the tango has sort of like that very sort of that square opposition kind of like energy to it, right? But let me just talk a little bit about what your ideal partner could look like or should look like or would be best, to look like. So you want them to have Venus in a fire or air sign. So fire signs are Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries, and air signs are Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. Then you want their Mars signs to be in a water or earth sign. And in particular, when I looked at your chart, I would say Mars in Capricorn or Mars in Taurus would be best for you. You want them to have a moon sign in Cancer, Pisces, or Taurus. You want them to have a sun sign in Capricorn, Taurus, or Scorpio. And you want them to have Mercury in an air sign, Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. Okay. So that would be your ideal partner, right? So, but of course, you might not find the person that has everything that I just mentioned, right? That's an exact match like that. But if you find someone who has at least 3 or 4 of those, right, then you'd be in really good shape. Do you know what I mean? So, I can send you this via email so you can look people up when you start dating them.
Excuse me, your Mars sign, where would that be? And where would your moon sign be?
all you need is their birth date, and then you can look that up, right?
Yeah.
Sneaky.
And yeah, well, that is sneaky. I would never have thought of it. One of the problems, though, just to digress a little bit, is, with online dating, which I don't do anymore, but no one actually puts their accurate birth date. So it could be a bit of a stretch to get a birth date.
Sure. Well, you might have to have a first date with someone before you ask for the birth date.
Right? Yeah. Can I see your driver's license, please?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just get your charts out.
Right. Yeah. Just, hey, can you bring your chart to your first date? Because I want to look at that. Exactly.
Oh, wow.
But one thing that I want to say in general for your natal chart, for your birth chart, is that if you're looking for a partner, for a long-term partner, it would be important that you have a partner that's very nurturing. It would be important that you have a partner that also has a very individualistic approach to life, that is playful and creative, and someone who can really see you as an equal partner.
Yes.
So that those would be the components of a really good partnership for you. This could be someone that if they have all of that, then they could be a long-term partner for you.
I would say that's very accurate for me as well.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to find that nurturing aspect alongside those things, I think, which is,
Yeah, but it's out there. It's out there. And the thing is, you have to remember that there's a lot of people out there in the world, and a lot of people are very complex. Even if you just see one side of a person once, they might show you a different side at another point, when you get to know them a little bit better, right? So people are complex, and just like you have a complex chart, with like that Venus in Aries and that moon in that sun in Pisces, and then that moon in Cancer, and then you have Jupiter in Aquarius and Mercury in Aquarius. These are very different energies. And you're not the only one who has a chart like that, so just keep that in mind.
I think it's very handy, and I'm sure it would be for listeners. I know they get all of this, but I think having those 4 traits that you just listed, which is, needing, for me, someone that's nurturing, individualistic, playful, creative, and sees me as an equal. These are things I probably know in some ways, Sonja, but I think it's great for listeners to actually, who are unsure what it is they need in a potential partner. It's a great way to look at it, because I think when you meet someone, if you're online dating and you've had a chart done and you've got those 4 things in mind, it's probably an easier way to navigate, would certainly be for me, rather than thinking, is this person in Mars or whatever? But do they have the nurturing quality? Are they individualistic, or are they going to be really sort of needy and dependent?
Yes.
Are they playful or creative, or, is it that they've never been to an art gallery in their life? So, these are all things that are really important, because when you get into a relationship, unless you've got those key traits and values, I guess, that's where relationships fall down, and it definitely impacts the bedroom.
Yes, of course.
As well.
Of course, yeah. And one thing also I want to say about your chart is that you have a very strong Neptune component, not just because you're Pisces, but also because it makes a connection to your moon nodes in your chart. And that would indicate, because intimate relationships are very important for you in this lifetime. And I would also say that sexual connections very important for you in this lifetime. But what really needs to be worked out for you first is to make sure that you have a lot of compassion and acceptance and trust around intimacy and around relationships. And that needs to be integrated and worked with, so that you can have the intimate relationship that you really are longing for and looking for.
Absolutely. Everything you've said, it's like you're reading my mind. That would definitely be a big one for me, that trust and safety. So, yeah. And that's quite a tricky thing. And I'm sure listeners have experienced that too, where you can date someone for a period of time, think you know them. And I've had clients like this with just horror stories. I heard one recently where someone, dated a man and thought it was really great and it was going somewhere. And she was absolutely traumatized. And this is nothing against cross-dressing, but came home to find her potential partner, they'd just moved in, dressed as a woman, and then had to get her head around that. And she had great acceptance around it, but what she didn't like was the fact that she didn't know that right from the beginning, nor did she see it coming. Right. So there's so many things to navigate when you meet someone in terms of actually really getting to know them.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And I mean, trust, of course, does play a huge, huge role in relationships, right? And trust is something that we, of course, need to build slowly with another person, as we get to know them a little bit better. And we gotta give it a chance, right? We gotta give trust a chance. Because if we don't allow that to be a part of the interaction, then it becomes difficult to create something long term.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things is if you don't get these things right and you haven't got that compatibility on those different levels, it will directly impact the bedroom. That's for sure.
Yes.
And I see that all the time when working with people, that it's usually there's not, if I look at my traits, for instance, just to use those, you know, if someone's in a relationship and they're not feeling nurtured or they're not feeling an equal, it causes tension, it causes conflict, which can then, of course, affect the sexual connection in the bedroom.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, for sure.
So, Sonja, I've just had someone in the message box here say, you know, their date of birth is December 26, 1960, born in Los Angeles at 5:30 PST time. Now, I'm pretty sure you can't come up with something that quick. Is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't pull up a chart that quickly. It would take a couple of minutes, and I don't want, you know, people to, I mean, unless you want to talk for a couple of minutes and I'll pull up a chart while you talk.
Absolutely. John and I can do that, and we can pull this if you want to pull this up. It's in the chat box.
Can you
give
me the year one more time?
Yep, sure. It's December 26, 1960.
Yeah.
And they were born at 5:30 p.m. PST, Los Angeles time.
Okay. All right. So I will pull that up real quick. And do we have a name for this person?
Just call them Jay.
Jay. Okay. And Los Angeles, was that?
Los Angeles, yes.
Okay. All right. Talk amongst yourselves.
Thanks. I love this. Okay, listeners, talk amongst yourself. So, John, you know, in terms of the zodiac, I mean, has it influenced you at all in your choices? Or have you sort of had an unconscious, you know, belief in knowing what was suited to you? But, you know, do you use it at all in terms of determining, I mean, I know you're a happily married man now, but did it ever influence you in the way that you looked at relationships?
Yeah, very much so, in fact. Often it was an unconscious thing. You know, you're attracted to certain types of people for all the personality reasons that you're discussing. And it turns out that their star charts are very similar, you know, and just the basic star sign, you know, the one that we all know, you know, you're Libra, Aquarian, a Taurian, a Piscean. You know, I was often attracted, a lot of my girlfriends in my early teens were Aries. Aries is also my mum's star sign, interestingly enough, but it's the opposite star sign to Libra. And, you know, on a very basic level, opposites attract. So I had a very strong air sign, fire sign, you know, passionate, you know, sex and passionate relationships. And then I sort of moved on from there and wanted different types of relationships. And the Arians tended to drift out of my life as far as partners was concerned. It's very, very interesting, but it's usually after the fact. But Sonja read my charts off air last time we were on, and they were uncannily, you know, accurate about my personality types and certain aspects of my personality and traits and history, so much so that I've become more and more interested in Sonja's work.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, John. Thank you.
Yeah, look, for me too, because just when Sonja started then and she said, I have these different sides, the spiritual, the forceful side and the cerebral side, that is literally me to a T. I do have all of those things, and the spiritual side of me sometimes people don't expect because they see me as more assertive, this confident, intelligent person, but when they realize that spiritual side is there, they get a little bit of a shock. And
Well, it was fascinating, Claudia. As Sonja was describing those traits, I was going, that's Claudia. That's the Claudia I know.
Yeah, perfect.
So accurate. And those lovely complexities and contradictions make up your full and rich personality and why you're so attractive as a human being, you know, and so charismatic.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important to remember, right? Is that our complexities that we have, even if there are contradictions, that's what makes us interesting, right? That's what makes us who we are and makes us different from other people, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, John. My ego has just gone through the roof here. The room's now not big enough. But it can mean that you are, as a woman, it can, present challenges, because having all those aspects to you, it does make you more complex, but it does bring with it this confidence that requires then a certain individual to be able to complement that, So it's definitely not an easy one.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, I pulled up the chart for our listener who was born on December 26, 1960 at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time in Los Angeles. Did I get that correct?
You did.
Okay, great. So what was the question that we had for this listener?
They were wanting to know what signs or combinations work for him. I think he's talking in relationships, compatibility.
Right. Okay, so this person has Venus in Aquarius. So this would be someone who would do really well with a person who has Venus in an air sign or fire sign, like you, Claudia. And then, so Venus in Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, or Leo, Sagittarius, Aries. And then we have this person has Mars in Cancer. So they would be compatible with someone who has their Mars sign in water or earth signs, also like you, Claudia. So I'm wondering, is this a female or male listener here? You might want to meet this person.
My potential compatible.
Seriously.
Oh, wow.
So Mars in water signs would be, like Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio. And then the earth signs would be Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo, right? So that would be a good compatible sign for this person. And then as far as let's see, we have the moon sign. So the moon sign is important too. So they have moon in Aries. So with moon in Aries, you need someone who's got moon in either a fire sign or an air sign, because the moon in Aries is quite forceful, and quite independent. So you need someone who can also feel emotionally independent and not too sensitive, because you can be quite direct when it comes to your reactions with people. So you would need someone who has the moon in Leo, in Sagittarius, or Aries, or the moon in Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. And then as far as the sun sign is concerned, you probably do pretty well with someone who has the sun in, let's see, you got the sun here in Capricorn, but your sun is conjunct Jupiter and Saturn and Mercury. So this is a very interesting sun placement here, because it's very complex. It's not just in Capricorn. So you would probably want someone who's got the sun probably in a fire sign as well, because this Sun-Jupiter conjunction is very fiery, actually, even though it's in Capricorn. So I would suggest to be with someone who is either a Sagittarius or someone who is an Aries, actually. Aries and Sagittarius would be really good for this person in terms of sun signs. But you would probably also do pretty well with someone who's like who's a Virgo. Actually, a Virgo would work as well. Or a Scorpio, actually. A Scorpio would work as well in this case. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Scorpio lands in your 5th house, which is the house of romance and sexuality to some degree, and fun, romance, fun, and sex. And then we also have the 8th house, which is intimate relationships. So the 5th house is where we have fun with sex, right? In the 8th house, we take sex to a whole more deeper, more intimate level. So, the 5th house is usually where we want to have both houses covered in terms of like partnerships. So you want your partner to definitely have some Scorpio, but you might also want him to have some Aquarian, energies in them as well. So that's just generally speaking. But I think what I want to say to this person here in particular is that you need a partner who's either way older or way younger than you, because you've got Saturn in the 7th house. And so this is usually someone who's attracted to people who are not necessarily your age. The age is not necessarily the thing that's so important, but what's important is this sort of like this sense of like where either you are the mature one or the mentor in the relationship, or the other person is the mature one or the mentor in the relationship. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. I mean, this person has said they're actually in a relationship with a Pisces woman.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a man, or he's not single. Claudia, I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. It's all good. I do want to come back.
He's in a relationship with a Pisces woman, and you're a Pisces woman. See, that would have worked, but hey, next time.
There's a lot of would have worked out there, Sonja. I definitely would like, though, to know for myself as well, because this is really interesting, and I think for listeners, they're going to want this done because it just creates a lot of clarity would be the word that comes to mind. And I hope that was useful for the listener. But you mentioned 5th and 8th house and older or younger partners. So I would like to know a little bit about that in relation to my chart. What's my 5th and 8th house?
So your 5th house is Taurus, Gemini. So some of it is Taurus, some of it is Gemini. So anybody who's got planets in Taurus or Gemini that correspond with your, so for example, Mars, like a Mars in Taurus would be, landing in your 5th house. So that would be great, especially in a later degree of Taurus. Or like a sun sign in Taurus, in a later degree of Taurus. That would be someone who would land in your 5th house. So that would be fantastic for you. Because that would also correspond with your sun sign, like someone who has the sun in a late Taurus degree. And then with Mars, that would correspond with your own natal Mars as well, because you have Mars in Pisces, and then the Mars in Taurus would be a sextile that would go really well together. Because then you can take your time having sex, you can really go slow and, really have it, like just enjoy it to the max, like have like 2-hour sex.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, good. Right? And then the 8th house in your case would be Leo. So you've got the North Node and Uranus in that house as well. So this is a little bit more complex, the 8th house, when it comes to true intimacy, because for you, true intimacy requires playfulness and creativity as well. And so often partners that are very playful and very creative, they also, like to play around a little bit. They don't necessarily like the commitment in addition to the playfulness. So what's important here is to allow there to be space, allow there to be a lot of freedom, and to make sure that you let the other partner know that even though, yes, maybe you want monogamy and you want a long-term thing, but you also want them to know that, that they have space and that they're not being, controlled by you or not being dominated by you in any way. Because there's probably the type of person that you are attracted to or that might come into your life might need that. They might need that spaciousness.
Okay. Interesting. And in terms of, you mentioned for the other listener, older, younger, does it give any indication of that in my chart?
Well, Uranus, I would say, is probably more younger, on the younger side. It's not as specific for you as it would be for that person, because in that other person's chart, they had Saturn in the relationship house, and Saturn is usually is connected to maturity, and so that's why you would. That's why I said what I said about, either them being the mature partner or their partner being the mature partner. But in your case with Uranus, I would say with Uranus, the thing that I already mentioned is the equal partnership is very important, equality and individualistic self-expression. So you need a partner like that, where it's okay for you to be who you are, where it's okay for them to be who they are, where there's a real acceptance around the differences that you might have.
Is that in Leo, is it?
Yeah, that's in Leo. Her Uranus is in Leo. Mm-hmm.
That's me, Claudia, by the way.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's too late, John. You're already married.
But that's why you guys also partner up with each other, right? Because there is that trust and that partnership and that sense of, accepting each other individually speaking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely there.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, and I think an interesting thing for listeners just in terms of relationships broadly and even friendships and all that sort of thing, and I think this particularly applies as you get older. It seems to be almost your energy or a knowing of yourself that you do in your life gravitate towards people, and sometimes you go full circle back to people that become significant friends in your life even, or even in relationships that could be the case, but they're just people that there is that acceptance, that you feel accepted, and it's just a merging of energy. And I think, I don't know if you'd agree with that, John, but as you get older, that becomes even more important.
100% agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, that's also directly related to your own self-acceptance too, right? And as we get older, of course, we're much better at our own self-acceptance as well.
Absolutely. So is there, Sonja, we've used my chart as an example, but can you then sort of definitively say there's one sign or a couple of signs that would be more suited with, devoid of all of this? Are there a couple of signs that are more suited to me?
Well, it depends on if we're just talking sun signs or not, right? If we're just talking sun signs, then I would say Capricorn, Taurus, or Scorpio would be a great fit for you. But if we're not just talking sun signs, and that's what's so important to understand about astrology is like that the complexity that we are as individuals is represented by the whole chart in astrology, and therefore you cannot really you can, but it's not necessarily going to serve us to minimize it to one sign or to just the sun sign, right? And that's why I was mentioning earlier, Venus, Mars, Moon, Sun, Mercury, these are the components. If you can find someone who can match with all of those things, fantastic. But if you can even just find someone you can match with a couple of things, a couple of those planets in a harmonious way, then that would be fantastic too.
And what about sexual connection? Is that the same thing, that it's not just one or two signs, that it's a combination of all these factors?
Well, sexual connection particularly, I would look at Venus and Mars. Right, it's kind of what we talked about last time already, a little bit, and so Venus and Mars would indicate how strong is your sexual connection. If those two planets are if they're both in squares and oppositions to each other, then your sexual connection is going to be way more hotter, but could also bring out problems within the relationship itself. When the Venus and Mars are both in harmonious aspects to each other, then you're probably going to harmonize with each other a lot more, but the sexual connection might be a little bit less hot.
Okay.
Might still be there, right? Because there might be other components that could create that sexual connection. If there's like a Pluto connecting to your Venus, or, a Uranus connecting to your Mars, or, so there could be other things that could make it stir up the sexiness. But it depends, right? You'd have to always look at the whole chart. That's very important. You cannot just look at one thing by itself.
Could I ask a question, Astrology for Dummies?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that because of the complexity of the chart and the fact that the charts show us all aspects of a personality, that no two Leos would be the same, and in some instances, depending on the congruencies in the other planets, that a Leo and a Libran may be more alike in personality than maybe Leo 1 and Leo 2?
Yes, that is very true, John, and thanks for bringing that up, because a Leo who has a moon in Cancer is going to be a very different Leo than a Leo who has a moon in Aries.
Yeah.
Very different. It's going to be a very different ballgame. So yes, and also the ascendant too, your rising sign. If you're Leo, but your rising sign is in Pisces, you're going to be a very different Leo than a Leo who has the rising sign in Aquarius,
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Which is why, as a Pisces with the different traits that I've got, I'm not the run-of-the-mill Pisces either, right?
You're not, no, because you have Mars in Pisces as well, so you have more than one planet in Pisces, but you have so many other components in your chart as well that make up who you are, that I would say you're not the typical Pisces. And probably most people wouldn't guess that you're a Pisces, right? Most people that meet you and see you, if you ask them, what sign do you think I am? They would either probably guess you as maybe a Capricorn, or they would guess you as a Libra, or they would guess you as an Aries, but they probably won't guess you as a Pisces.
Correct. That's very true. Whenever I've had that conversation with anyone, no one ever guesses me as a Pisces. Ever.
Right.
In fact, they'll go through the entire list before they'll get to that one.
Yes.
A 1 in 12 chance.
I can see that, definitely. Yeah, well, you have a very strong Aquarian side of you as well, very strong Aquarian. So probably that's probably how I would have guessed. I would have probably guessed that you're an Aquarius or an Aries. That's probably what I would have guessed.
Interesting.
Not knowing you. But if I would be your best friend, let's say, I probably would know the Pisces side, and I would know the Cancer side to you as well. It depends on how well you know someone, right?
Absolutely. So when it comes to, if someone came to you, for instance, that had a issue in their relationship, and it was particularly around sexual connection or sexual issues or problems, would you be able to go into their chart, look at the different elements and go, I think this is what's going wrong?
So it depends on whether the person is single or in a relationship. So if they are in a relationship, I would have to look at both partners' charts. If a single person came to me and said, I keep having these issues with other partners, or just with my boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever, then I would just look at their chart. And I would in particular look at their Mars placement first, because Mars is our sexual drive. And then I would also take a look at the 5th house and the 8th house, see what's going on there, if there's any traumas, or if there's anything connected to their, past lives, or to their earlier life, their childhood or younger life, that could cause these issues. And then I would also take a look at their progressed chart, because of course we have a birth chart, but the birth chart is just that's the chart that shows us our life potential. But then we also evolve as people, right? So we grow, we learn, we live, we emotionally grow and evolve and mature, right? So the progress chart shows us that kind of planetary movement. And so I would look at the progress chart too and look to see what's going on there that could cause some of these issues in that person's life, and talk to them about that, and with the symbolism of the chart, you can really very often very clearly pinpoint what might be going on. And when you then start to have a conversation with that person and say, well, here's what I see. What do you think? could it be this? And, tell me a little bit more about that in your life, and tell me a little bit more about what's going on in that area of your life, or what has happened, in your childhood around this, or in past relationships. And then you start a conversation and you see what comes out or what comes up,
I think one of the reasons I see this as so important, and look, let's face it, some people don't believe in it and others do, and that's just the reality.
That's true, yeah.
And it's like everything in life. Some people don't like one thing, but others do. So, that's just how it is. However, where I find this really useful for people in relationships and people that might be having issues in the bedroom is that sometimes it's so difficult to have people grow an awareness around what's going on for them. And, like with therapy, the traditional style of doing that is to look at what's happened in people's past, bring it into the present, and then see how it might be impacting how they relate. But it's all so airy-fairy. And this is me as a therapist saying this, right? Yeah. And it's what led me to be more, and I guess because my natural personality that I now know is cerebral and somewhat forceful, is that I'm very different in the way that I work with people.
Yes, you are.
I don't take 6 months of therapy to get to this is the problem. That happens in the first session. But what I think is really great around this is people sometimes need something to hold on to or grab onto to understand what's going wrong. And it provides a sense of comfort for them. And I think this is where Zodiac has a really big place in relationships and even sexual issues, to be able to say to people, well, okay, let's name what the issues are, but then let's understand it more in terms of your compatibility. Yes. And I think this provides an incredible guide. It's so much easier for people to do that when they have something to work with. Just like we've had this conversation and I've grabbed onto nurturing, individualistic. I've really grabbed onto those things. I need to look for those things, because it's like a guide. It's like something you've got in your back pocket to work with rather than not having something more tangible. Does that sort of make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I was thinking about it as you were talking. It also, brings a commonality, a universal aspect to who you are. That a lot of the personality traits are universal, and you have a universal coordinated place in the universe too. So it gives you a sense of meaning. It's also a wonderful way of indirectly talking about some of those, psychotherapeutic issues and needs. It's a great icebreaker. It allows you a little bit of objective perspective on personality traits and on yourself. And apart from the fact that it's uncannily, as I said before, using that word, insightful. So it allows those conversations to be delved into on a very, 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 very deep level without it seeming too personal, and confrontational.
Yeah. Yeah. Very beautifully said, John.
Absolutely. I definitely see it. Do you do very much of that sort of work at all, or is it more just individual readings that you do, Sonja?
Right now, I really focus more on individuals. Yes. But I offer couples readings. I offer compatibility readings. So I am very happy to do couple stuff as well with people. But right now it's most of my clients, it's more one-on-one. And it's mostly that I really try to support people in understanding their own individualistic parts and facets of themselves, to bring a greater acceptance to themselves and help them integrate parts of their own personalities that maybe they have suppressed or that they've denied of themselves because it wasn't safe, previously to own that part of themselves. And so through astrology, it's really beautiful that you can bring in some of these sides that have been neglected, that are a part of you, but that you have sort of like pushed to the curb because it wasn't really safe maybe in your community to express those things, or in your childhood, or but now as an adult you have more freedom to incorporate these things.
Yeah, that's another thing I was about to say. The wonderful thing about astrology, it balances aspects of your personality, because it has so many of the positive traits and things that you can work on that are positive, and gives you direction and a guiding principle to the very positive aspects of who you are. Whereas I find psychotherapy often just seems to get caught up, focused on the negative aspects and what's wrong.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that, John. And in fact, I think it's been the biggest problem, and why coaching took over is because there was that tendency to get caught up in therapy. And in fact, I'm here to tell you that clients will definitely take you there. They want to tell you their story and the negativity and everything about it. And the way I work is constantly pulling them out of that, because as I say, there's three positions. There's the past. You can be standing where you are and be stuck, or you can move forward. Which do you choose? And it's about giving people the tools to move forward. But Sonja, let us know how people would be able to get in contact with you if they did want either an individual reading, or if it was a couple even that wanted to understand, or it's someone that wants to understand more about sexual connection. How can they get in contact with you?
So I have several ways that people can be in contact with me. One is my website, obviously, which is AstrologerCoach.com. And then also I have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/astrologercoach.sonjafrancis. And then I have a Twitter account, and I have a YouTube channel. So these are all things that are, where you can get free stuff, or where you can listen in on what's going on astrologically speaking. And if you want to do a reading, I actually wanted to offer something to the listeners today, which is 1 month's free star membership, which offers you a discount for readings. So if you wanted to jump in and do that, just send me an email to info@astrologercoach.com. Then just put star membership into the subject line, and I will send you a coupon via email so that you can get your 1 month for free. And then if you book a reading right away, you get a 10% discount on your reading.
All right. And is that offer forever? Because I just remembered one of the things is this show goes out into all those platforms and it's out there forever. So if someone listens to it in 12 months' time.
Yeah. So let's pick a deadline. Let's say until the end of February 28th, 2019.
Okay, so for the listeners, it finishes then. So if you listen to this episode in 2020, know that special list still is not going anymore. No. Okay. Sonja, it's been so great to have you today. And I really, again, love to have you back again at some time, because I enjoy this so much myself, and I'm sure the listeners do, but the relevance of it to what we do in terms of relationships and sexual connection and giving people a guide in their life is just brilliant. I love it. So
thank you.
Closing thoughts, John?
Thank you once again, Sonja Francis. Absolutely magnificent. Let's reach for the stars.
Yes, John. Thank you very much. Let's reach for the stars.
Reach for the stars. All right. So we'll be back next Tuesday, 5 p.m. PST time for another show.
Does your relationship feel like it's crying out for a makeover? Would you like to enhance your sexual connection? Experience greater intimacy, desire, and passion? Join Claudia Soul and her VIP guests every Tuesday at 5 p.m. PST for Sexually Connected, the show. Tune in at sexuallyconnected.com and find out how to put the sexy back in your relationship.